I very much wanted to talk about this, about communication in a management and leadership context. Before that, I just wanted to reflect on the fact that this program has been going on for 7 months now. 7 months, which has coincided with an absolutely tumultuous time, of course, in the world at large. But a tumultuous time, I'm afraid, from an absolutely personal standpoint for myself. I hang at the bottom of the discretionary expenditure food chain as far as my clients are concerned. So back at the beginning of March, at the end of March, they effectively shut up shop as far as using me was concerned. And I wondered what this was going to mean. And slowly over the first few months going into the spring and then early summer, I felt like someone hanging onto the edge of a precipice with my fingernails, really wondering what was going to happen. I only say this not to kind of play the violin strings and to encourage your sympathy, but to really draw attention to, in my experience, how much has changed since then. The kind of behavioral and attitudinal sea change that I'm actually experiencing, admittedly only empirically through my client base, is happening most particularly since the summer. And I'm going to focus on two areas where I've really experienced this attitudinal sea change very deeply. Not just a sea change, I think an absolutely systemic change, excuse me, in the way that our clients, my clients, view some of these challenges. Those are in terms of leadership and they're in terms of business development. So as far as leadership is concerned, I've a couple of clients that I've been running big leadership programs for some years. It's a kind of recycling program. People continue to go through it to refresh their skills, to reflect on what they've done. And in order to accommodate the changes affected by the lockdown, I did a little survey back in the summer before restarting the program to see how attitudes had changed. And I was really surprised, very delighted, in fact, to see that their attitudes to communication have expanded. It's as if the lockdown have caused a complete fundamental reappraisal of what leadership, and most particularly leadership communication, is about. There seems to be a recognition that more time needs to be spent leading and communicating, that leadership is recognized, or communication rather, is recognized as a transaction. So in other words, in Obama's words, the value of communication is what is received, not what is transmitted. That more delegation, more direction, more empowerment, more autonomy is inspired because of that. And compared with pre-lockdown, the attitudes are now that the most important role as a leader, and this is a trench leader, leader of a practice group, a project leader, someone working in a team, not necessarily a kind of formal structured leader. Their role is to inspire and motivate and to create common purpose and to sense check and to ensure collaboration, transparency, and mutual understanding. And this is taking place within a context of an environment, a communication environment, which of course has been attenuated by the effect of lockdown. In other words, we're now working with the digital platforms, with Zoom or Teams or whatever, and having to adapt. So secondly, I'm noticing that people are developing a new language of communication around using these tools. Recognizing that the kind of informal bumping into the corridor, giving a nod, giving a wink, the kind of nuanced form of communication doesn't work. So I'm only alluding to these very briefly just to say that compared with the beginning of April, I am now hugely optimistic about the way that organizations seem genuinely starting to evolve and adapt systemically to the gauntlet thrown down by COVID. And very briefly, I'd add to that, I'm also experiencing similar changes in the world of business development. At a certain point, my clients are saying to me, we can't do business development, we can't network because we have no physical access to the people that we would network with. But now, to pick up Richard's earlier points, organizations, firms are running very, very powerful campaigns. And these campaigns are in turn allied with the partners using these same digital platforms to reach out in a much more intimate way to their clients. And I use the word intimacy advisedly. I'm sure many of you know, I'm sure Richard knows the concept of client intimacy. It's a step beyond client service, beyond client understanding. And I think that's where we're going. So I feel that there are very definitely grounds for great optimism, and I'm really looking forward to the months ahead. Richard.
And I'm sure you'll be a great navigator to your clients through that process, Meirion.
Thank you.
Robert, come and tell us about your world of finance, which is a bit different than one we've been talking about, but the whole point about this show is we don't just focus on one theme, we look at a lot of different issues during the course of our hour.